Hi guys, Mr. Tanner here, bringing you an introductory video to Pliny. Whether you're just starting out with Pliny or just starting your revision, hopefully this video will be helpful. So, Gaius Plinius Caecilius Secundus was born in 61 AD and was better known as Pliny the Younger. His father, Lucius Caecilius Chilo, died when Pliny was a young boy, so he was partly brought up by his uncle Pliny the Elder, an admiral of the Roman fleet and a famous natural historian. Pliny was married 3 times, first when he was around 18, secondly in his 30s, and finally in his late 40s not long before he died, to Calpurnia, about whom one of the letters we study was written. Pliny is thought to have died suddenly during his governorship of the province of Bithynia Pontus in 113 AD, since that's when his letters stop. So that makes him about 52 when he died. Pliny was a member of the equestrian order. His career followed the standard path for a reasonably well-off Roman, but he must have been successful as he rose to the senatorial and was eventually a consul in 100 AD. Pretty much the earliest age he could have been allowed to become a consul, in fact. Pliny's first writing was a Greek tragedy when he was only 14 years old. He also wrote a vast number of poems and was well known as an excellent public speaker. However, the largest bundle of Pliny's work left to us is his 240-plus letters. The titles that these letters hold for us were given not by Pliny himself, but by later editors, and in the case of the letters we're studying, by OCR. Letter 1.9, entitled The Rat Race. Well, Pliny was a very wealthy man and bought many properties, including lavish villas all over Italy. Here, he mentions life at his Laurentine villa, away from the hassle of the city. 2.6 is Discrimination at a dinner party. This letter describes the mistreatment of guests at a dinner party who are served different qualities of food and wine, dependent on their social status. Pliny's solution is, however, far from generous, although it is perhaps to Roman eyes philosophically commendable at least, like Horace's similar pronouncements. If everyone eats medium quality food, then Pliny doesn't spend all his money and everyone enjoys equality, even if they're not enjoying the best food and wine that's out there. Pliny 3.14, Brutal Murder. Larcius Macedo was a senator of high rank, which is all the more surprising since his father was a freedman. Nevertheless, Macedo treats his slaves brutally, forgetting his background, and in return they ambush him at the baths and throw him on the burning hot tiles. He plays dead until he can get help from his household and his more loyal slaves. The culprits all run away but are rounded up and executed, not long before Macedo himself dies from the injuries he sustained. The moral of our story, or of the letter, is not to overindulge your slaves, as they're feral creatures who know no morals. If you're too nice to them, then they'll take you for granted, they'll take advantage of you. And even if you treat them meanly, you've got to be very careful or they might turn around and end up murdering you. Alright. Number 4.19, My Lovely Wife, a slightly different tone of letter. Pliny writes to his wife's aunt, ostensibly praising all his wife's best qualities, but he's also essentially reflecting his own success and fine characteristics. The letter shows us how women, and especially young wives, were treated in Rome, and reads more like a school report than a description of a husband and wife relationship. It's hardly surprising given Pliny's in his 40s and Calpurnia is, in her mid-teens? Calpurnia is soon widowed, however, when Pliny dies in Bithynia, but not before she's already miscarried their baby. 5.19 is Awesomest. The letter contrasts with the Larcius Macedo letter since it depicts Pliny's love for his freedman Awesomest, who acts for him and reads to him. Like the previous letter about Calpurnia, it reflects the way that Pliny loves Awesomest as a treasured possession rather than particularly as a person, but the purpose of the letter is fundamentally to ask Valerius Paulinus to put Awesomest up at his villa in Gaul so he can recover from his latest illness, which he's suffered basically by expending too much energy reading too vigorously to Pliny. Finally, letter 9.6, we've called it I Hate Racing. Pliny turns his nose up at chariot racing, the most popular sport in the whole Roman Empire, preferring to spend quiet time with his books whilst everyone else goes to the Circus Maximus. His gripe is not about any lack of skill on the part of the charioteers, but rather that the people only go to cheer for their team, and if all the charioteers swapped colours partway through the race, the supporters would change allegiance similarly. So, those are the 6 letters we have to study. You may not get a particularly likeable picture of Pliny from the letters, and indeed some of the rest of his letters are even more dull and dispiriting, but they are an incredibly useful window into the world of a wealthy Roman, which is probably why they're prescribed on our course. They create a really good contrast with Horace and with Juvenal in particular in the way that they write. And I suppose you can relate a lot of what Pliny says about the way that he treats his freedmen and his slaves to the way that Petronius describes Trimalchio behaving. Okay, that's enough for me as an introduction to Pliny. I hope that was helpful to you. See you again soon.